Hello everyone, as requested I am doing the Halloween Ends mask by Trick or Treat Studios. We're going to rehaul it and make it look just like it came right out of the movie, like Michael's been living in the sewer for 5 years. So without further ado, let's get right on into it. I just wanted to quickly point out that the insane majority of my viewers are unsubscribed, so if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to be notified of newly released videos. Alright, so we're going to hop right into this video. Now, here is the mask, completely stock, and I gotta say, Trick or Treat Studios kind of knocked it out of the ballpark with this one. The detail is all there, the paint isn't really thick, so all of the cracks, crevices, and wrinkles are really intact, and I actually really like the way they did that moldy effect, but we do have to remove that obviously to paint it. I put some naphtha on a regular towel, just began to kind of really go at it. Now, a lot of it kind of stayed on the mask. I was able to get the majority of it off, but a lot of really tiny fibers stay in a lot of those cracks and crevices, which I thought was going to be a much bigger deal than it actually was. It is totally fine. I went ahead and added, Michael's little hat there, because I was out of hair nets or hair, whatevers. So I mixed up a white, a yellow, and a kind of cream almond color with liquid latex and water, got it to a consistency where I was able to airbrush, do very light coats all over the mask just to kind of get a base coat or base layer to start with. This mask is more of a yellow off-white really than a whiter mask because it's just been through so much at this point. So this is after about 3 or 4 layers of paint. As you can see, you can still see some detail beneath, and you can definitely see where those little fibers were from the cotton or the mold, quote unquote, that was around it. I then mixed a black and dark brown, and in here you see me do a green. I would not recommend doing the green. I end up redoing the whole mask because of this, but spray the entire mask down with water, and we're basically going to do a wash, but we're going to let the whole thing dry. The reason I said not to do the green is, as you can see here, the color is like a foresty dark green, and the green part of that really seemed to stick to the white color of the mask, so that mask ended up with a really big green hue. After that, I ended up kind of redoing the whole thing off screen, but here's what it looks like after I painted it everywhere. It really gets in all of those cracks and crevices, and you're gonna let that dry for about an hour or until the paint kind of goes matte. Here I have, this was a pillow cover. I ended up just cutting it up into pieces, and I put a little bit of water on it, not too much, and then you just gently kind of rub the mask down, trying not to apply too much pressure, but just enough where it's going to get the paint off the surface, and leave it into all of those beautiful details. Now here you can see where I was saying the green kind of did really stick, so it does look very zombie-esque. Like, I don't know, it's very, very dark green for me. So off screen, I'll end up actually redoing the whole thing and just using a black and a brown to get a really dark brown color, and I ended up liking that a lot more. But if you're okay with this look, it does still look incredible. I then started using a dark brown and going into some of those really detailed recessed areas, like the dark burn on his forehead, as well as the one that kind of has that weird Joker smile and in the ear. And then I also began to build up that gradient that goes along the edges of the hairline. Now this is unique to this mask, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be blood, because on the poster photos we also see it coming out of the gunshot wound on the cheek. I then added a mustardy yellow, very, very watered down all over the burns, because I'm assuming, after 5 years have passed in this movie, the mask has kind of deteriorated past the burns, so it's kind of just towards that latex. But camera died and didn't realize it. What ended up happening was I added a little bit more red to the dark brown, and then ended up spraying that around the edges to mimic that blood effect. I added it to the needle wound, around the eye, and around to the forehead where you see that. And just like the Halloween Kills mask tutorial I did last year, I did some dry brushing of black onto those burns, both on the neck and on that one side. So that was pretty much the paint job finished for me. I really liked the way that looked. The hairline was just bothering me for some reason. They did a very unique method this time where they actually folded it under, which was the first time I've ever seen that and do this with the Michael Myers masks. However, it was done in a way where, like, the more you'd move the hair, the more it kept receding, and I hated that. So I ended up peeling it all off, and my paint job honestly gave me a pretty good place to, put the hair, so I didn't have to worry about, looking at reference photos too much. But yeah, like I said, the hairline was done in a really strange way, so I ended up cutting off the glue lines and even used hair from a previous, mask that I messed up really bad, from 2018. and I would cut off the glue and then kind of just place out where I wanted the hair. On the burnt side of the mask, from the reference photos I had, and there are very few at the moment because the film isn't out, it's very, very, like, it's messed up on that side, obviously, from not only the fire, but from the years passing. So I'm using some E6000 and placing the really gnarly pieces of hair that I had. And this is the second time I've ever messed with the hairline on a mask, especially to this extent. And this was a really great mask to try with because the hairline was so messed up. So it gave me a little bit of, you know, freedom to mess up and to learn from those mistakes, which was really cool. But the E6000 works pretty great. I know some people use tacky glue. I just don't like tacky glue, and I never really have it on hand. I always have E6000 on hand. So I'm just painting that in and then really pushing trying to get all the hairs in there. You know, because you have multiple layers of hair, sometimes I only get the bottom layers. But that's what it looks like from there. Now, this is completely optional, but what I did with the 2018 mask is, the Halloween Kills mask, is I'd use a little bit of a flame to kind of singe some of the hairs on the front, and it kind of ended up really creating a look I like. This is completely optional, and especially if you're, you know, younger, I don't really recommend doing this, but it's something I kind of wanted to mess with. There's the hairline pretty much done for the most part after drying for a couple hours. So you can see there's a lot of, you know, pieces missing on the burnt side, which is good. Then I kind of moved on to the mold from here before I started doing anything else with the hair. Now I'm using cotton balls because I saw someone recommend this, and for the most part, it's pretty much exactly what I think Trick or Treat Studios did. I would use some of the E6000, paint it into spots, and then I started by kind of just peeling it apart and trying to push it into the glue, but I ended up finding that if you just take the cotton ball as is and kind of just stick it to it and pull it away, it usually ends up leaving cotton fibers behind, which ended up working a lot better than what I'm doing here, because this was very tedious. And I wanted it to look right. I didn't want it to just look like I painted cotton all over the mask, so I started by just doing some really small amounts, putting it in places like the gunshot wound, you know, on the neck, and I looked at some very few reference photos that I had to try and get this right, and ended up doing less because I figured less was probably better than more at this point, especially because I don't know what's going on this side. I ended up adding a very watered down moldy green color because I've never really seen mold that's just white like that unless it was food, so I ended up adding just a little bit of that green so the cotton would absorb it, and you can see here it's just very subtle, but I feel like it ended up looking better than just white cotton. I then took some liquid latex mixed with paint. It's more latex than paint actually, the black's just kind of there to add the color, and I painted this all over the right side of the mask to add that burnt singed hair. Now, even though I know the mask has been sitting for 5 years, I don't think the singed part of the hair would have adjusted too much, so that I kept. And there was one promo they released for Halloween Ends a few months ago. They kind of showed the hair either looked like it was mostly gone or it was mostly just matted all the way down on the right side of the head. So that's the look I went with, and that's what that looked like. Now, I got this from Cosplay Chris. This recommendation is using Gold Bond or talcum powder. Gold Bond is pretty much the same thing, and I added that all over the hair. Now this was to add the look of, first off, Ashes from Halloween Kills, as well as to kind of just create a dusty, even moldier look than the mask needed. And I added this to both sides because I wanted it to blend, and this really did end up helping the mask look very old. Like it almost added gray hairs, which isn't the look we're looking for, but it really did assist, and I would highly recommend doing that on this mask. I then added more E6000, and you can see here I'm using the trick of just applying the cotton and hitting the mask with it in the spots that I added glue. E6000 may not be the best glue for this, but as you can see, this is what pretty much the final look looked like. I am honestly beyond happy with it. I hope you guys really like it. I'm probably going to do another one of these masks with a video when the film comes out, just so I have a little bit more reference. But yeah, that's the final product. Be sure to tune in this week, and I hope you guys enjoy the film. I'm seeing it on Thursday, and I hope you guys have a good day.